Welcome to Engaging ESG, where we consider, challenge, and celebrate the evolving world of environmental, social, and governance communications, all in an increasingly complex landscape. I'm Jennifer Owens, marketing executive and consultant.
And I'm Katie Callens, Global Head of Sustainability at Adobe. For Season 4, we're once again talking with climate leaders who are shaping the present and future of sustainability messaging. From connecting with stakeholders to crafting compelling impact stories, we're uncovering the strategies that worked and learning from those that didn't.
Whether you're a seasoned pro or new to the field, you'll find practical tips and insights in every episode.
And whether you're working on your first sustainability report or reimagining your organization's climate narrative, these conversations will help you navigate the complexities of ESG communications. Let's get started.
Hello, Katie. How are you doing?
Hello, I'm good. How are you, Jen?
I am stressed by the holiday to-do list that is starting. This is when we're recording this. How are you doing with it? And are you about to tell me that you don't have one and you just let the holidays take over?
No, I have a long holiday to-do list and I'm currently ignoring it and dissociating with delicious pastries I brought back from France. So It could be worse.
That is fantastic. That's a plan. That's going to be my new strategy. So yeah. Well, on my to-do list, how about that for a nice segue? It is time to introduce our new guest. Would you like to do the honors?
Yes, I'd love to. So today we have a really special guest who has roots in New York and San Francisco, which makes him even more, I think, aligned with our podcast and where we're both based. So Evan Harrison is joining us today. He's the CEO of Kiss the Ground, a nonprofit that folks probably have heard of, founded in 2013 to really focus on awakening people to the possibilities of regenerative agriculture, and more specifically, how healthy soil can promote human and planetary health. The organization utilizes storytelling, education, and advocacy to inspire millions to join the regenerative ag movement. And this year alone, they awarded $500,000 in grants directly to 215 farms and ranches making this transition. And I was impressed to see, that research from Kiss the Ground really shows that awareness of regen agriculture has nearly doubled in the past 18 months. And Evan joined as the group as the CEO in 2023 after a pretty incredible career building digital media platforms at iHeartRadio, BMG Music, and AOL. And today he's joining Engaging ESG to bring his storytelling expertise to fight for soil health. And we are very excited to have him here. Welcome, Evan.
Well, thanks for having me. And I'm just ready to dive in. This is going to be a fun conversation.
Well, I just saw yet another article that said, oh, the corporates, they all want storytellers now. It's all about storytelling. And, where you do a little eye roll of like, yeah, that's what it is. So we're going to dive right in because those of us who have been in climate comms for a while or any kind of comms, it's always interesting to hear how others approach the story. So I hear you say that you lead with a mission and a message of wellness rather than the story of alarm and scariness and everything. So let's start big. Can you talk about like that approach? Why do you say it that way? Why do you describe it that way? And how does that help with Kiss the Ground?
Yeah, let's start big. So I joined Kiss the Ground about 3.5 years ago. And what I saw was a very exciting, viable solution for planetary and human health that I had heard nothing about. I had no idea how soil played such an important role in sequestering carbon from the atmosphere and in nutrient density of the foods we eat. I just hadn't connected it. And I was on the board of directors of the Surfrider Foundation while I was doing a bunch of corporate music jobs still. So I thought I was on the cutting edge, leading edge of environmental work. And when I, like others, when I saw the Kiss the Ground film, which interestingly, I was doing music festivals at the time, and my daughter asked me if I could promote a film meetup she was organizing in Colorado. And I said, of course, just get me some material and we'll figure it out. And she said, yeah, some old guy is narrating it. I'm sure you've heard of him. And it was Woody Harrelson. And I watched the clip and we edited it down, and I was watching this like, what is this? And so fast forward, I'm now the CEO. They were looking for leadership to build out a sustainable business model, essentially, and take it to the next level. After many years of groundwork, working with Big Picture Ranch, a for-profit couple film company who created the film around our work. And I said, okay, let's step back for a second and really look at what's going on here. Like, why didn't I know about this? And so we commissioned some research, and this is 2.5, almost 3 years ago. And what we found was only 4% of the US adult population knew what we were talking about. It's like, okay, that makes sense why I didn't know then. Like, nobody knows what we're talking about here, but it felt like everybody assumed everybody knew what we were talking about. There was a lot of intense dialogue about the detail and the science. And I said, okay, that's all very important. We have to be working collaboratively, of course, with farmers, with scientists, with academia. And there are all these things that have to be done, but we need to choose a lane at Kiss the Ground, and we need to be great at really one thing. And what we landed at was we developed a theory of change based on Malcolm Gladwell's tipping point. And that was simply our greatest asset is to be storytellers who inspire and educate a movement, bipartisan, inclusive, bring people in. And while we don't want to turn our back on that first 4% who knows and has been working on this, and I had the privilege of working with Paul Hawken a bit, who, think about, like, he started talking about Project Drawdown so many years ago. And so there's so many people, and we want to show a lot of respect to that, of course, while taking the great work they did and expanding it. So when we did some research, what we found was, okay, 4% of the US adult population even knows what we're talking about.
And just to pause you there for a second, Evan, when you say knows what we're talking about, is that like those people know the definition of regenerative agriculture, or how are you defining that?
Yeah, or the importance of soil health, or that our soil is hurting.
So there's recall, those who think they know what they're talking about. And then there's, recall is always, right? Oh, yeah, no, I know what that means. But then multiple choice, like, regenerative agriculture is, and we just describe it. And there is no agreed to definition, but we described it in a way that general population terms could understand. So that wound up being 4% awareness. Yet we also found from that survey that 50% of those polled do not feel climate change is an issue that they should participate in a solution for. So it wasn't about, no, I don't believe it's real. It was, yeah, but that's not mine to fix. Yet 75% of those polled said they want to buy something that makes them healthy when they're in the supermarket. And you go a level further on that, and what they believe makes them healthy, the two labels they reacted to the most, 88%, natural and fresh, unregulated terms. So we looked at that data and said, okay, our role is to tell stories and grow the awareness level to that Malcolm Gladwell inspired tipping point of, once the masses start shopping for regeneratively sourced products, government policy will shift, money will go into the system in different ways. So we felt like that was our role at Kiss the Ground, to tell stories, reach a broader audience, and bring the movement to the tipping point. And the way we went about it was, okay, the film put our work on the map, but not everybody's going to watch a 2-hour documentary. So to be a current brand that has influence today, telling stories, you have to show up every day and you have to meet people where they're at. So we came up with a content strategy, which is producing content every day. This year, we'll produce 400 unique pieces of content and distribute them across our platforms, from LinkedIn to Instagram to TikTok, email newsletter. And by going from 75 unique pieces of content last year to 400 this year, we've grown our audience fourfold. And now we're reaching 2 million people a month with our messages. And from there, when they want to learn more and become advocates, we have education content. So we only scratch the surface at the top to raise awareness. And we do so we have a show called Five with a Farmer. It's 90-second, 2-minute reels of different farmers. We've done 35 of them.
Right,
Next
I
year,
love that.
one every other week. And every farmer is unique. Oh, one more data point, by the way. Only 9% of the US population spoke to a farmer last year about the sourcing of their food. So while the intention is there, there's a big gap in understanding where the food comes from.
Accessibility.
Right. So one piece of content, these fun little reels that play really nice on TikTok, Instagram, and all the scrolling reel platforms now. Once a year, we release a mini documentary, and we found that 10, 11-minute film is a real sweet spot. So we call it Stories of Regeneration. We've done 5 of them. We just released one featuring celebrity chef Dan Barber, who wouldn't like to be referred to that way. But Dan really played a major role in bringing farm to table into the mainstream. And we dove deep on the subject of retired dairy cows. Beef in protein is a hot subject right now. And we talked about utilizing the cow as a dual purpose and changing the farming system. That will be our most successful mini documentary. Our last one won about a dozen awards, but we're already, I think in a month, we're now at 500,000 people have viewed it in just the first 4 weeks. So that's fine and great, reaching audiences like that. But some people want even smaller bite-sized content. So we have these shopping guides that take away the confusion when you're going shopping. We've done them for dairy, for poultry, for all sorts of different categories of meeting people where they're at. And then farmer work is critical to what we do. So as you mentioned, this year we gave 500,000 directly to hundreds of farmers across the country. Now we're documenting their stories of how they are taking some land that was not under regenerative practices, and 72,000 acres of their land is being transitioned thanks to the funding we've provided to them. And we'll be telling those stories throughout the year, rinse and repeat.
Well, and so you could have done 400 pieces of content that were alarmist. There's certainly the cadence and the amount and the alike. It's also the choice in your editorial planning of the tone and you're going to go with an education mindset. You're going to go with a meet the farmer mindset. Because you could be doing scare tactics every day.
We could. And some are very polarizing topics, draw clicks and draw audience. We chose the inspirational. We chose the happy route. Like, I love leading with positivity and with inspirational messages and being inclusive, where there are a lot of great companies, there are a lot of great individuals doing amazing work who have different theories of change, who may not agree with ours. That's cool. We still want you to be a part of the movement, and we still want to help out in any way we can. So we landed at, let's focus on, did you know? This is an amazing opportunity that not many people know about. Not every farm needs to be regenerative farming practices. But if we change the food system in a material way where more people are supporting local regenerative farms that have an ecosystem-based approach, big, meaningful, positive change starts to happen. So our feeling was, let's tell these stories. Let's really shine the light on farmers, because not all farmers are the same. And the reason really the first thought of regenerative practices is it's based on your immediate environment, because no two farms are the same. Context is everything. There's a lot of artistry in regenerative farming. There's a lot of trial and error, and there is no one package that works for every farm, because every farm is different. And the farmers are really the rock stars of what we're doing. I spent many years working with and promoting artists, and I've gotten to know so many farmers, and the willingness to change for a 5th generation farmer is so inspirational to me, because they're now in charge of their family's legacy. And what they're saying is, it takes a lot. It's a bold stance to take. No, I know we've done this the same way for a long time. It's not working anymore. Our soil is depleted, And we just keep propping it up with all of these chemicals that's making the foods we grow unhealthy. People are unhealthy. We have a plan. We're going to start down this regenerative path. It's hard. There's a barrier to enter, but it's happening in the tens of thousands. So we're no longer in that stage. And Katie, you mentioned from the beginning the doubling of the movement. I mentioned, to answer the first question, like how did we wind up focusing on health as opposed to planetary and climate change? Because that's the bigger opportunity is the answer. Number one, we found that with our first study, and what we found in the second study, asking the same questions again, is more people are looking for food as their health remedy, which is a great thing. And they don't understand what the labels mean. So we double down on that's what gave us the green light to say we need to create more stories. We need to do more with farmers. We need to go faster, and we need to be more diverse in our storytelling. So we found that after 18 months of the first survey to the second survey, that the awareness with the same questions has grown from 4% to 7%. Our awareness at Kiss the Ground has grown from 10% to 15% in that area. So we don't know if we're the market leader. We know we're an important voice, and we champion everybody's voice in this movement.
That's great. Couple of takeaways that came to mind as you were speaking. One is, I think there's a lot of debate that we've talked about on this podcast and just in this industry around like, what is the power of individual consumers and the choices they make? And like, especially around some of these kind of greenwashy topics like recycling. But I think like food and how food that we consume impacts our health and the health of our families are decisions that people are making every day. And so I like the idea of not only education, but also the tooling of saying, we know you want to make more informed decisions and you have a short amount of time and the grocery store is probably really busy. And so meeting people where they're at. And the other analogy or kind of comparison that came to mind as you were speaking was I always like to reference the Monterey Bay Aquarium fish guides. And it seems like maybe some of what you're doing here is around bridging those guides around how to eat healthfully and also support ecosystems within other food categories, and bringing in the farmer stories is also just a benefit because those are the people creating the food that keeps us healthy. And I'd love to know more about their lives and what they're working on.
That's the playbook. That's exactly it.
You know, it makes me think of having worked in midlife women's health. These are the same things. It's how to get to know a topic. What are the questions to ask my doctor? We would write literal scripts for, because you get in the doctor's office and you're overwhelmed and you're nervous. And here are the 4 questions you might want to consider asking. And we would do it in printable things. But it's like you see all these things that are happening. And that's also based on we don't want to scare you about your health. We want you to be empowered to ask the questions that you want answered about your health. This is all putting the positive take on it. Because I am the same way. I always, when I worked in the diversity space, because I've worked in every space, I always would say, I don't care who solves for paid parental leave in this country, just solve it. I would prefer a certain group of people to solve it. But since you haven't yet, and we're the only first world country without paid paternity leave and paid maternity leave, at this point, I don't care. Just get it done. So if it's about a healthy food system that I can trust, I don't care. I want people to have the information they need, and I want to have these systems in place. Boy, sorry for my moment on the soapbox there. So,
I think you're vehemently agreeing.
One of the things, it's funny because you can hear in your describing the impact, it's about the KPIs and the ROIs and, you have all the numbers there. I mean, and it's like, you still have, as much as we want to tell great stories and create lots of good content and push things forward, you're still showing impact. And I guess it's just that those numbers are incredibly valuable, I'm sure, when you're going for grants and for funding and to work with partners. Are these the numbers that people are looking at? Or are you telling them these are the numbers they need to look at?
telling people what they need to look at doesn't really work that well
Yeah.
on the ground.
Can you just tell I was just, what number should I tell them to look at?
I came from structured companies, and I think that's very, very important to build core skill sets. I learned from some amazing leaders, and the systems that I was with, like I worked at a record company I started in San Francisco called BMG, and the structure was so strong. And what I found was when there's strong structure around you, that frees up individuals in creative industries to be more creative. And so I kind of have always straddled that line between being an entrepreneur and being a company guy. And what I found was I could help get things done within big companies and lead big change because there's that platform. It's incredibly frustrating at times to help change the culture of a company. But when you see that consumer behavior is changing and you see your company is not changing, you find believers within the company. And the way you really influence change is not just saying, I think, rather to say, this is what consumers want. So this is what we do. So I find data helps really strengthen arguments. And when we release third-party data, people seem to really gravitate towards engaging more so with those messages. Now, my KPIs and all the other acronyms, that's just about best business practices. It's about, hey, we think this is going to work. And, like I just posted on LinkedIn about budget season. I've worked for GE type executives where you have to do 4 blockers with tons and tons and tons of data. Like as a surfer, I like to operate by feel, both in how I treat my body as well as by data. And really not all in one, not all in the other. So when we're measuring, okay, how many people watched this film? How long did they watch it for? How many people reacted to this purchasing guide? How many comments did we get? It's all about, is our message hitting? And we just fine tune from there. And we have to be honest with ourselves. I mean, we could celebrate wins all day. If they're not real wins, you're not really getting anywhere. You're just celebrating amongst yourself. So we monitor key performance indicators that we believe will help further our mission in really just spreading the message that healthy soil, our gut health, the foods we consume, these things are all interrelated.
Awesome. Yeah, no, that's really helpful. And I think you referencing all of your work in the recording industry brings up another question we had. As someone who works in the corporate sustainability space, I'm always really interested in how nonprofit organizations like your own thinks about a litmus test for working with corporate partners. So thinking about like how you walk us through the vetting process, what that actually looks like, what red flags tell you a company isn't quite ready to work with you, because clearly you're building a whole suite of partners and you're doing so with a lot of intentionality and a lot of integrity for the farmer stories who you bring in. And so you have to be really thoughtful about that.
Yeah. When I joined, what I looked at was, okay, nonprofits are businesses and they need to be run like a business. We have a deep passion in our mission we are all aligned around. However, the day an employee doesn't get paid, the day a vendor or anybody we promise money to doesn't get paid, everything goes upside down. So I wanted to figure out how we could further our impact as quickly as possible while remaining true to the voice that we established, the role we want to play with sustainable, predictable revenue models. And where we landed is we need to partner with companies. We didn't really have a partnership program until about 2 years ago. And what we developed was a strategy whereby we say, you know what? We don't need to only work with companies that are in the supply chain lane. We need to work with any company that wants to learn more about how soil health can positively affect human health. And whether it's coming from an ESG department, whether it's coming from a marketing department that says, hey, this gives us something unique to talk about internally. And then once we're ready, we'll go out to our consumers and we'll tell them why we support Kiss the Ground's work and why we are a champion of regenerative farming. So the first test has nothing to do with the size of the company. It's, are they coming from an earnest place, or is it transactional and they just want a press release? And I figured this out, because I've worked for big companies and I've helped lead change in big companies. I understand the massive challenges of being a department head or CEO or whatever level you're in a big company. It takes a lot of finesse to change the way a big company works. And as they should, everybody needs to focus on their revenue model. And if you can have your cake and eat it too and talk about things that are very meaningful to you while
Right.
maximizing profit, that's amazing. So when I would go to meet a company, I would just say, okay, it's me, just me, and 3 agencies and 10 executives at this company, big company, multi-billion dollar company, lots of meetings to get to this, but here we are sitting down with decision makers. All right, this is my question. If we work together, what would the press release look like in your mind? What's the headline? What's the subhead? And then, you hear a bunch of people saying, well, Kiss the Ground and insert name of company are deep believers and, a little greenwashy-ish type
Yeah.
stuff.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
the most senior person says, no, 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 let's be real. We don't even know where we're sourcing our materials from. We need to just simply, humbly get into the conversation that starts with educating our team and
Mm.
not making bold claims. And with that, I said, now we're talking and now we're going to work together. And it's going to be so much fun. So with those scenarios, we have programs that we've developed that are all about, hey, I'll go in, I'll meet with the executives, we'll play a 10-minute film, we'll do a Q&A, and then we'll do a co-authored piece together to talk about what your intentions are as a company. And we ease into the relationship. And a lot of companies get so excited after those meetups, they wind up finding new ways to work with us. So we have templates, we have ways we work. We have 21 partners now from so many different categories. And I mean, who would think anthropology is a partner of Kiss the Ground and why? And they are such an amazing partner. And every year we grow what we're doing. And they very responsibly offer out to their audience why they are a supporter of Kiss the Ground. They invite their audience to do at the point of purchase tip up type campaigns. So it's been really, really fruitful. And then within the vertical, there are companies in the sourcing space that say, we're not there yet, we're not ROC certified, but this is what we're doing to work towards that. And Spindrift is a great example. What a strong ethos that company has. And they dedicated a product, 1% of all the product sold comes to Kiss the Ground. And we talk about the importance of regenerative agriculture together. So lots of different companies and lots of different categories want to do the right thing, and we find the right way to partner with them to do so.
That's fantastic. Yeah. Because I'm sure there's concerns as much as there is excitement over partnering and getting that right and finding the levels that work for them and how they want to talk about it. And that's great. Well, so we're coming to the end of our conversation. You have tipped your heart and your hand that you are a surfer, but so it doesn't have to be this, but we like to have our guests kind of talk about how they're centering themselves, what keeps them going. It doesn't have to be in the climate space. Mine never are. I have a deep love of 70s detective series. That is what I go to as my regenerative moment. So what are yours? What are some things we always like to add a few in our show notes that people can follow along with?
I've always been, at least I thought I was always fitness oriented. When I was in corporate jobs, I tried to run 4 half marathons a year, figuring like, hey, if I do that, I'll get to like cool cities, see great places, and I'll stay in shape. Didn't realize that I wasn't really staying in great condition with the corporate lifestyle, 5 airplanes a week, that kind of thing. But I got into HIIT fitness classes a while back, and then that led to Pilates, then it led to yoga. And now, as a surfer who's 55 years old, my goal is to stay fit enough so I can keep surfing, hopefully into my 80s. And to do so, it's a combination of diet. So I've learned so much since I've started this role. So, I intermittent fasting, I shorten my window, but I love preparing regeneratively sourced foods and cooking my own meals. So eating with thought, but not perfection. I'm always going to love my pizza, and they're good.
I was going to say, come on. You got to give yourself.
But a lot of what we work on has taught me, if you have too much of a rigid line around the things you're doing, it's just not as much fun. So as a surfer, first and foremost, I try and not to be perfect, but to go by feel with a fitness regimen that works for me. Every morning, I make sure to do 3 minutes of planks, push-ups, squats, just stuff before I go out on a walk with my dog, leave the phone at home, enjoy nature. First break of meetings, we're work from home, 30 people. I'm in front of my computer way too much, but I'm definitely getting outside, feeling the sunlight, and just trying to do something that makes me sweat every day. That's really the recipe.
I love it. I love it. Can we put that in the show notes, Katie?
Sure. Sweat every day. Kiss the ground and sweat every day. Evan, thank you so much for joining us today on season 4 of Engaging ESG. Lots to chew on after our discussion, and we look forward to staying in touch. And thank you all for listening. Take care.
Amazing. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for joining us on Engaging ESG. Have a question for us to consider or a strategy you'd like us to cover? Email us today at engagingesg@gmail.com.
Please remember to rate, review, and subscribe to Engaging ESG today. It helps us grow, and even better, be sure to share the podcast with your favorite sustainability, diversity, or social impact colleague. And until next time, keep engaging.
This podcast is part of the Sound Advice FM network. Sound Advice FM, women's voices amplified.